Hello, hello developers, welcome to Elixir Pro. In this video, you're going to learn the best way to create components and create the communication between your components using the LiveView. And why I'm going to explain and why I'm going to teach you these tips. Because one of the things that I learned, the most complicated sometimes is to understand the communication between the components, between the page, the components, and how the services works, how the process works. So this is some tips that I saw that makes a lot of difference in my life. So I came across this when I started reviewing one of the codes, and some of pairs of my team asked me help, and I helped them to understand more about the components. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna share my screen. So here, this is what I did. I created a simple project using the Elixir. So what I did was mixphx.new elixpro underscore example dash dash binary ID. And after that, I just opened my terminal and started my application. So I'm gonna open my browser over here. So as you can see, this is a default application. And now I'm going to explain to you some tips over here. So the first one, we need to understand a little bit how the process works. So after that, we can use, for example, Erlang. After Erlang, I think is speed to a list. After this, we could use the to underscore string. And there you go. We have the process ID as a string, and then we can use as a value. So another thing that we're going to do is just create a live view page. This is not a basic content, but it's really useful when you start creating your Elixir application. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to explain how to create live view pages, but I'm going to explain to you how to create a smart component. So here, I'm going to create a page that we can call something like components or live example. We're going to create a live view component that we're going to live view page that we can call live. Wow, that's going to be weird. Example live index. Let's try to access and create all the flow to this page. So when I go here and call example, we already have the directory, but we don't have the page. So here, I'm going to create a folder called live example underscore live.ex. And here, we can create a module called example Elixir. Elixir, what's our application name? I forgot. Elixir example and dot live. To start a live view application, what you need to do is just using the example and configure that we are going to use live view, fmount, assigns, session, and socket as well. And OK, and socket. So here we need to implement the HTML. So what we're going to do is create the render signs. Here we will have hi. Let's see what's going to happen. And it did work, but I like to use this way to create the HTML file. So I'm going to create over here a file called example_live.html. EX, E8, EEX, and high again, and see what's gonna happen. So here we have our page. And another thing that we really need to do is that when we create our page, we probably, most of the time, I recommend you to create a tiny page, LiveView page, and tiny components. And to think about it, let's first see this example over here, understand how the process ID works, and then we can think about the components, and then I'm gonna give you an amazing example. This is our process ID. I'm gonna assign it to my page, and when I assign it in my page, I'm gonna call my process ID to show you how it works. So here we have our process ID, and one of the things that's really amazing about the live view is that when you call observer.start, we'll have our observer example. So now our process ID is 967. When I go to application and process, I'm gonna try to find the 9, 6, and 7 over here. And this is our process ID. And what we have here in the state is that all hold the HTML. And then we have the assigns, which is our process ID. I'm gonna create a new variable, a new value to assign to my project. And this value is gonna be total. This is gonna be a value, and then we'll have components value 3, 4, 5, 6 over here. And the count, we'll pass this value over here, and we will assign the total and the components value. Can I do it? Let me show you how it's gonna work. So now we'll have our components value and our total. Probably the components value we can't see. Let's create a list over here. So we're gonna create a 4. Let's use the UL. Let's assign it to a list. And there you go. Now we have all those informations over here. We'll have the total. Let's make this one prettier. So this one will be here. And we will have total. It's gonna be strong. And let's see what's happened. Now, as you can see, we have the sum over here. So total. So I'm so sorry, I made a mistake over here. This is not gonna be the account, but sum. And there you go. We have all those informations, and then we'll have our process ID let's check our process ID and see what's happened now. So this is 606830. So this is our process ID. And now, if I go to state, as you can see, if I expand over here, we'll have our components value over here. In our assigns, we'll have our process ID assigned over here. And if I expand this one, I think we can see it better. We have our total information. Basically, we have all the HTML. And let's start creating some components to see one of the examples and how we create the communication between the process. I'm sorry, not the process, but the components, because the components most of the time is a piece of the component is a piece of the page. So we have the same process ID to every component that we have in our page. So here, what we are gonna do is that create a component. We can call count. Count count component .ex. We're gonna create def module. I'm gonna copy this one and paste because this one is gonna be simpler to create our module. We are in example folder, and then we'll have count component. I'm gonna use our example live_component here. Let's create the HTML, and the HTML will be component.html .ex. So now what we will have to do is provide just a way to show the component over here. Let's create a div. Hi. We still don't have the component over here. To show the component, I'm gonna create an alias right here. And after that, we're creating this alias. We can go ahead here. We already have the alias. Sorry, photo over here. And then to call the component, we can do something like this. I'm just gonna comment this piece of code for now. Then let's call the component live_component. And here we need to pass the module, which is our count component over here. We still don't need the value for now, but let's see what's gonna happen if we call this component now. We probably will see a lot of high information. Now we need the ID. One of the things that we can do here is to use the unknown.with index here, and then we'll have the component, and we'll have the index, and we can call it something like count. Index to create an ID. Let's refresh the page. And there you go. You have the high every time, but what we really need here is the value. I'm going to create a value over here. Then we can pass the component value right here. And let's see what's going to happen. Let's remove this piece of code now. And if we go to this component and call at value, let's see what we're going to have the same result. But the most important thing here is, is the component, the information about the component and the process ID. So here, if I send, I don't need to send the process ID, but I can show you information. So here we'll have strong bit. Then we will have at self same Erlang dot process ID to list here. Let's refresh the page. Self not found. So let me try only self. And as you can see, we have the same process ID over here and here, because the component basically is a map of the page. So if I call this one observer.start, let me show you what's going to happen. So here we'll have our process. Our process is 5936, 5936. And then if I go to state, as you can see, we have pieces of components here. If I share to you, the whole state will have our count component. The ID is count -1. Then we have the value, but the process is the same. So basically, as you can see, we have a map. The page is a map. And inside this map, we have components, which is a map as well. So now, as we understand how the process ID works, what we can do is I want to manipulate some values. And to do that, I'm going to create a button. This button I'm going to call inc. phx, click, we will call the event inc. And now every component that we will see will have the increment over here. But when I click on here, it's gonna throw to us an error, or it should. Let me try that again. Did it work? Let me refresh my page again. When I click to increment, it's gonna throw to us an error. And now we have the event calling the parent, which is our example live. handle event undefined or private. So what we are gonna do first is to understand this communication. And to do that, we're gonna create the handle event called inc. Parent for us doesn't matter. So here, no reply, socket, but let's understand what's gonna happen here. Let me recompile the page and try that again. When I click to increment, we receive this error, this message. And what we are gonna do first to understand what's happening is let's use this function called send update. Here you can select the component. The ID is going to be count1, and the information is gonna be the value. And now let's send just a random number over here. When I refresh the page and refresh the page, what's going to happen is when I click over here, oops, let me refresh again. Let me check exactly what is our real, this one, count1, count1. My computer started getting so slow. I don't understand why. Come on. Okay. Let me try to open a new tab. It's still loading. Let's wait for a little while. Oh my God. Okay, it's loaded. Cool. So here, when I click to increment, one of the things that should happen is the communication here. Let me check what's happening. It should call our component. Let me use the Phoenix. Oh my God, super slow. There you go. Let me click on here. And what has happened is that we updated this information, for example, to 1000. But what we need to do now is that we need to update. Now we updated the count number 1 over here. But what should happen is that we want to update this piece of components, not one of this. So to make this one happen, I'm gonna copy this piece of code, this handle event. I'm gonna go to this piece of code over here, call the handle event over here. And what we are gonna do is that we already have the value. We can use the update value over here function. We have the value v plus 1 and to call this handle event, we can go to our HTML and just include the phx target at myself. Let me refresh the page again. It's loaded. But what's gonna happen now, we're gonna interact in each component. So now when I click here, what should happen is that I need only to update those values over here. But unfortunately, I don't know what's happening with my computer right now. It's so slow. There you go. Now we have the communication. We isolated the communication between the process. But one of the things that we need to do is to update the parent. To do that, what we are gonna do is that we will send to ourself, which is our process ID, and then we will say call the event inc parent. When I go to this piece of code here and use def handle info, this one will have our socket. When we call this event, what we are gonna do is just using the no reply socket update, and total will be total function t will be t plus 1. Because every time when you click on the component, we are going to update the parent as well. So let me refresh the page again. Unfortunately, sorry for that. Let me just close this Erlang over here as well. So now when I click here to increment, I increment the component and I increment the parent. So the same one here and here as well. So another thing that we can do is create the communication between all those processes over here and the parent. So what we can do is, let's create a form over here. Form, gonna be really simple. phx submit inc parent. This is gonna be our function. We'll have a text input. Text name value, and we can have a button inc component. So one of the things that's going to happen, you learned that this is a front-end event. So this is a handle event. I'm going to create one over here. Handle event inc parent. Doesn't matter the value. Sorry, the value really matter for us, which is gonna be value, and we'll have the socket. It for us, what we're gonna do is we're going to update our total. I'm just gonna copy this one, and this is gonna be the same because we're going to increment the component, but at the same time, we need to keep the same information in our parent. So this is gonna happen, and now we can have the send update over here to our component. The ID will be count on the value, and the information will be inc1. Going to recompile the code. First, this is gonna throw an error, and this is one of the things that's really amazing in Elixir and LiveView is the updates. And to do that work, what's happened? My page blow up. And to do that, we have the inc over here. Let me try to select one of the components. So if I choose 2, this is going to be this component over here. When I click on here, it's going to blow up because, let me check, handle no function calls. We do have the event here, handle event, inc parent. This is a value, so that was my mistake. Refresh this page again. Let me choose the component over here. Gonna be the number 2. When I call this event, nothing happened because now we don't have this event specifically here to this component. So what we can do is that we'll have 2 updates. One of them is we receive our assigns socket. Okay, assign socket assigns. And the another one will be our inc value, which is this information that we are sending, or it can be inc. We'll have our update. We'll have, we need to update the value as well. And what's gonna happen is we will have our value, and we're gonna use the plus inc over here now. Blow up again, sorry, because I have this habit to refresh the page and at the same time waiting for LiveView refresh. So now when I update this one here, and when I send a new value to a component, I increment the component like component number 2, which is going to be this one. When I click to inc, I update this one and update this one as well. When I send 0, we have both this one updated. So that was the tip. It's a simple application, a simple example, but extremely powerful to make you to help you to create tiny components, tiny pages, and create the communication between the page and the components. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and this class. See you for the next time. Bye bye.